Good evening, everyone. This is kind of a spontaneous video. I wasn't really planning on making it, but, I've had a lot of people following up on my Instagram as well as other places on social media wanting to hear about how this experience was, so I thought I would go ahead and I would do a video for it right now. Now, I am waiting still. I was on vacation 2 weeks ago to both North and South Carolina. That video is 90% done. It is called Atlantic Antics, the Carolina Chronicles. I'm just waiting for some photos to get developed, which is taking way too long, but I cannot finish that video until those are done because I really want to include them. So keep on the channel, be on the lookout very soon for the upcoming travel video, Atlantic Antics, where I will be traveling to, I have traveled to Wilmington, North Carolina, Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, and Charleston, South Carolina. So be on the lookout for that, but in the meantime, as you wait, I wanted to do this video recollection of my experience Saturday, August 15th at Fan Expo Chicago. Now, you guys know, you follow the channel, I go to a lot of the horror conventions, namely Flashback Weekend, which is the primary one. This was actually the first year I actively just decided not to go in favor of our Carolina vacation, as well as Days of the Dead. Politics of the individual conventions out of the way, I usually always have a good experience at both of them. There's always behind the scenes stuff, and especially this year, Days of the Dead abruptly canceled their March event, which I think they are way overzealous doing 2 in Chicago every year, and evidently this year didn't teach them anything because they're going back to that method in 2027. But I like the smaller horror conventions. I'm not typically a fan of the large Comic-Con scale shows such as C2E2 or, namely here, Fan Expo. I had only been to Fan Expo once before in the past, and it was 2023, but it was cool. I got to meet Kiefer Sutherland, I met Peter Weller, I met Christopher Lloyd. Cool, time, expensive, and just so jam-packed. That's why I don't really like those. It's notorious. I'm not saying anything new here. Fan Expo and those types of shows vastly oversell, and they overpack the place. I'll get into that at the end when I talk about the event itself, but the thing that made us really want to do it this year, namely my dad and I, was the inclusion of Kurt Russell. Now, Kurt Russell apparently had signed some sort of a clause that this would be a one-time only show forever. Sean Clark even did a video about it on his own YouTube page. And when Mr. Booking Agent Sean Clark is excited about something, you know that's a deal. Now, obviously, the price was very high, so my dad and I went 50-50 on a Kurt Russell photo op. Didn't even bother with an autograph. And so we knew we were going to do that all summer. So him and I, we both work a lot. We both do side jobs a lot. So we're always saving up money for our more novelty events like this. So we put a little bit of a side fund. And, we figured, if we're going, might as well save a little bit up, meet some people since we're not going to Flashback. A lot of my Flashback friends also attended Fan Expo, so it's always nice to see them. And so Kurt Russell was basically the straw that broke the camel's back that made us decide we want to go to this. There were a couple other people I really wanted to meet, unfortunately some of which backed out at the 11th hour, the week of, namely Frank Grillo and Christopher Lambert. So would have been great to meet both of those guys, hopefully in the future. I know Christopher Lambert is having a lot of health issues. I think he fainted or something at the last Fan Expo, so yeah, health is more important than a silly convention that partially is built on greed, if you ask me. But I just wanted to share some of my experiences with you. And the very first person I met at Fan Expo Chicago 2026, and this is kind of a surprise because he came out of Frank Grillo being canceled, and that was Michael Johnston, the lead from the 2026 breakout hit Obsession. And I figured pretty much everyone involved with that is probably going to shoot up to the A-list because of how huge that movie was. I think Indy Navarrete was already confirmed to be playing something in an upcoming Marvel film. So it was cool to meet Michael Johnston. Him and I are practically the same age. He He's very down to earth, very cool. I felt kind of bad for him and his handwriting because everyone in line with me, and I got him first in the morning. Everyone was asking, oh, can you write the line? Which the line they're referring to was, I wish Nikki would love me more than anyone in the fucking world. Like, 5 people in front of me in line and then people behind me, they all wanted that written on their poster or vinyl or whatever, and I felt so bad for him having to write that up. So I walk up to him and I say, just keeping it easy, just to Ken, and him and I chatted a little bit, and really nice guy. You could tell he was appreciative of how simple I kept it. So I've got nothing but nice things to say about Michael Johnston. Next up was one of the highlights of the event, and it's an actor that I love in so many movies. I've got so many things that he's in, and just he's one of those iconic character actors. When I saw he was going to be there, I got really excited, and that is, of course, Robert Davi. Now, he's in a lot that I like, but I mean, I couldn't not get the Die Hard picture. Right then and then, he was just so, he signed it with 2 quotes, because some of these people at these events, you have to pay extra for a quote, you have to pay extra for a character name, like I said, the greed is getting ridiculous at these things. But him, no additional charge, he writes, to Ken, no relation. And then below that, he writes, not anymore. So I'm like, wow, he's just loading up all of his quotes on here. And he signs it Robert Davi, Special Agent Big Johnson. But the reason I was so receptive to him, he was talking to me and my dad as if he was like my grandfather or something. He was just so warm, so humble, so welcoming. I love that he was sitting there wearing a coat with a fedora, which really completed the gangster motif that he's pretty much built his entire career off of. But I mentioned tracks, I mentioned No Contest, just a bunch of obscure stuff he did. And then Robert Davi himself tells me, oh, if you like those, you gotta watch Maniac Cop 2 and 3 that I'm in. I'm like, well, because he told me to, now I have to. And then he even plugged for me that he's gonna be in the 4th season of Tulsa King, which is a show I greatly enjoy with Sylvester Stallone. So the fact he's gonna be in season 4 of that, color me excited. But he talked with us for a good few minutes. He was so happy that we were there to meet him, very appreciative. So I have absolutely nothing but nice things to say about my experience meeting Robert Davi. Okay, and then next, another kind of spontaneous one, and this came as a result of the Christopher Lambert cancellation, and I did not even realize this guy was going to be there because I didn't realize who the actor was, because they were doing a reunion for the show The Boys, which I know was a pretty big draw there. And you guys know me, I have always been a fanboy of the Fast and the Furious franchise. No matter how silly it gets, even in these later entries, I love my series. I can't wait for Fast Forever in 2028. I know you are all rolling your eyes at me right now, and I do not give a shit, because those are my movies. And Laz Alonso from The Boys, I did not realize this was the same actor who played the main villainous henchman Phoenix in Fast 4, also known as Fast and Furious, which is the worst named of the series. And as much as I love the series, Fast 4 is probably my least favorite. It's the one I go back to the least, but he is really good in it. And I walked up to his table and I said, hey, I know it's silly, but I'm a big fan of the Fast franchise. And he said, hey, I can't complain about it, man. I got to be a part of it, and I got to be a part of it before the cars started flying. So that was funny. He's got a sense of humor about it. And again, just really nice guy. So we did these 2 pictures, and one of them was more traditional, and then the other one was kind of a funny, we were flipping off the camera, which was his idea. So, hey, there we go, Laz Alonso. And the last one, this one I wanted to meet, because I'll talk about it in my upcoming movie collection update, but I recently this year, I am not a Star Wars fan. I've never been a Star Wars fan. But recently, I really got into the show The Mandalorian. I know, late to the party, but I went with some coworkers to see the new film, The Mandalorian and Grogu, in the theater. Kind of begrudgingly, I was like, what's this gonna be? And I ended up really liking the movie, so then I retroactively went back and watched all 3 seasons of the show. And one of the people at Fan Expo was Brendan Wayne, who is the stuntman and physical embodiment of the titular character of The Mandalorian. You know, Pedro Pascal does the voice once in a while, you know, when he's unmasked and you see his head. Let's be real, you and I both know Pedro Pascal is never in that suit when they're filming. It's Brendan Wayne is the Mandalorian, as well as another guy whose name escapes me, who does the fight scenes for the Mandalorian. He was not there, but couldn't resist getting Brendan Wayne's autograph. Gave me this Brendan Wayne little trading card with it. And it was funny with this, again, just such a hospitable, warm, welcoming guy. He talked to every fan in line as if you were the only person in the room. He's got that cowboy southern charm, which makes sense as he is John Wayne's grandson. And the funny thing about this particular picture I chose is that he was telling me there is something in the picture that should not be there. He didn't tell me what it was, but he hinted that something is here that's not supposed to be here. So eventually I found it, but yeah, so that was a fun little discussion with him. So that's what I mean, you know. The people, I've got nothing but nice things to say about. It was all great interactions. Michael Johnston, Robert Davi especially, Brendan Wayne especially, Laz Alonso. And then we get to the 2 photo ops I did, one of which, and these are nice because you can buy them in advance. So, you know, that didn't really factor into my budget too much because I bought these way back at the start of summer. So this was nice. I could not resist meeting the one and only Dolph Lundgren. What can you say about Dolph? From Rocky IV to the Expendables films to other, you know, lower budget kind of direct-to-video movies that I still really like. There's one that I used to love when I was in college called Detention. It's like a Die Hard ripoff in a high school. He's the gym teacher or something. Such a silly movie, but I love it. Dark Angel is a very silly, like, sci-fi action type thing from the early 90s. Silly, but fun. I've always really liked Dolph. He's even cameoed on It's Always Sunny in Philadelphia. So, hey, great to meet him. And he was a very friendly guy, you know. When I walked up to him for the photo op, because obviously the photo ops move so quick, you know, you don't. But he looked at me, hey, man, how's it going? You know, gave me a little pat and did the picture. You know, can't ask for anything more in your brief photo op interaction. But the whole reason we were there was for the one and only convention appearance, as of now, we'll see if it sticks, of one of the biggest legends and arguably probably the most successful actor I have met to this date, Kurt fucking Russell. My dad and I walked up to him, and again, Kurt Russell was the biggest wild card. He's never done a convention before, so there was nothing to base off how he would act with fans and friends to such a high volume. And I was very pleased to see as we were getting up to him, he looked at everyone, he smiled at everyone, he acknowledged that you were there. It didn't really, yes, he's sitting in a chair, but it wasn't like he was disconnected from the fact he was there. He acknowledged everyone, he was welcoming everyone, he seemed like he wanted to be there, or it seemed like he was happy to be doing what he was doing, and that is the most I can ask for with something like this. And you'll notice his expression in this picture is kind of interesting because this picture was taken in the middle of my dad and I making him laugh. Because we walked up to him, we got on each side of the chair, and I said, "It's Mr. Nobody," which of course, his character from the Fast franchise, which I'm probably the only person who even brought that up to him, if I had to guess. Because there were Wyatt Earp cosplayers, there were Jack Burton cosplayers, there were Snake Plissken cosplayers, there were 2 guys in backdraft firefighter outfits, like every Kurt Russell cosplay. I saw some Death Proof jackets. Every Kurt Russell cosplay you can think of was on display here. Don't know how many people would have thought to bring up Mr. Nobody from the Fast movies. So when I said that, Kurt audibly chuckled there in the seat, and he kind of jerked, and that's when this picture was taken. So he's kind of like licking his lips, and he's got his tongue out, and you can see my dad is kind of on the aftermath of laughing. So that's cool, because it shows us in the middle of having a legitimate moment with Kurt Russell. Which that sentence I never thought would come out of my mouth, because I love Kurt Russell. I mean, I mean, it's a bit more of an obscure, not obscure, but it's not one of his top tier ones that people think of. I grew up loving Breakdown. Breakdown is a thriller that I love, and that was like my first real big like Kurt Russell movie that I loved. But growing up with my dad watching all the car movies, we loved Used Cars, and obviously then the John Carpenter movies all came up. So what is there you can say about Kurt Russell? And the fact that he was as professional and cordial, and he had the personality that he always has presented himself with having, the best thing you can ask for. Because I know Mel Gibson has been the controversy lately on Facebook with him just clearly not wanting to be there doing what he's doing. And I'm just like, man, after all the shit you've put your own career through, you're basically getting a second chance, you're getting more work, you're getting out there again, and you just blow it again by still just being a dick. Like, come on. So my experiences, I've got nothing bad to say about any of the celebrities that I met. Of course, all the friends that I met there, new and old. Great to meet all of you. But my experience with the convention itself. Again, I've tended to avoid Fan Expo all these years just because I hate the big congested conventions. They always oversell them. They overbook them. In the case of this year, they had way too many headliners. There's Kurt Russell. There's Mel Gibson. There's the entire Lord of the Rings Hobbit cast, which I'm not a fan of, but that arguably had the biggest percentage of people there. Then they had John Carpenter, all the Halloween people, all the people that the aforementioned Sean Clark represents. It's too much. Like, it's too much, and like I said, that's what gets to the greedy aspect of all these big modern conventions. And that's why I'm kind of just getting turned off on the convention scenes, because even the horror ones are starting to get there. Because I remember back in like 2014 to 2016 was my personal peak, where I could not wait for the conventions every year. But since then, they've all become so commercialized. The prices just keep, like nowadays, because I'm a guy, I'll prioritize a selfie over an autograph, because I'm never selling my autographs. I just, the proof that you met a person, my go-to would just be retaining a selfie. But, I like to get a combo when I can, just because, it's nice to have both, nice to have a little bit of a collection going. These days, you're pretty much guaranteed, if you want a combo, which you might as well because it's a better value, $80 minimum for even just 80s B-movie horror actors. Like, it's ridiculous. So that's turning me off of the convention scene as a whole. And with Fan Expo, like these big, because I don't go like the Creation Entertainment shows or the C2E2s. There's a lot of them, but Fan Expo specifically always has had this reputation for overbooking. And it just represents the greed that's in the modern convention, field, because I saw something online and a friend of mine told me, now granted this is hearsay, so I don't know, but I'm assuming they got it from a reputable source, that there were, on Saturday, August 15th, when I was there, 75,000 people through the Donald E. Stevens Center. And you cannot walk. They've got don't accept so many vendors. And, I love supporting artists and independent creatives and stuff, but walking around the floor there, so many of these people are selling the same shit. It's like you could clear up so much room, but because it's more money, more people in the door, more headliners, more revenue, Fan Expo is just going to keep pushing the limits. They're never going to sell out. And the biggest cluster from this year, I will say, the photo ops were horrific, because they had 2 different floors this year. It's the first year they've ever done that. Photo ops were upstairs and downstairs. My good friend Bob missed one of his photo ops because the Mel Gibson one ran too long, so he missed going downstairs for Dolph Lundgren. And keep in mind, they were behind because they were having server problems. So pictures were taking an hour to print out, and people were not getting their digital copies because of the server problems. And plus, if you had multiple photo ops you had to go from the one side downstairs all the way upstairs to the other side, back and forth, to get your pictures and do everything. Like, it was just so impractical and just tedious. Excuse me while I kill this bug. Now, to Fan Expo's credit, Leap Photography, which is the photo op company they use, they did send out an email and they did send out an apology, and they did say that we're going to work on getting all of you your digital copies of your pictures. You will also all be receiving a refund for that. I do give credit and I do give props for the accountability to that, so I do appreciate that. But the problem, it seemed a little bit better downstairs than it was upstairs, but upstairs when I was waiting for the Kurt Russell photo op, because the Kurt Russell photo op was happening at the same time as the Hobbit ones. There were no lines. People were mobbed around the photo op entrance trying to see the screen, trying to figure out when their photo op got moved to, because things were running behind. And of course, the staff running it, they don't want there to be problems. They don't want there to be a delay. So I do sympathize with them, and I do sympathize that they were probably having an incredibly hellish weekend. But it's like, man, you're doing too much. You've got the Hobbit cast happening at the same time as Kurt Russell, and Mel Gibson is right next to them. Like, it's just, people were mobbed around the photo op entrance. You could not walk, and no one was getting proper updates on the time. It's just, I understand that shit happens, and shit did happen, and they rolled with it, I think, the best they could. But this has been a problem for these larger conventions for a while, so it's just clear that it's just, they were not organized properly for that volume of people. And it all goes down to the same root cause of just, these conventions are too big, they're overbooking. But because people keep giving them all this money, and I'm guilty of it, look at all this stuff I got, it's just going to keep going that way, so. But at the end of the day, did I have a good time there? Yes, I did, because I got to meet some outstanding actors. Once the photo ops, once you got in line for your specific photo op, it was fine. It went by really quick, and yeah, the crew was great. But, all the problems on the back end and just the lack of organization leading up to it was just something in 2026 these conventions should not be doing. And it's just, my old man yells at cloud, but I don't know. These things have just gotten too big, too commercialized. Will I go in the future if there's guests that I like? Maybe for a day. But they really got to fix the photo op situation, because this year was just not good for it. So. But at the end of the day, Kurt Russell was great, Robert Davi was great, Brennan Wayne was great, really liked Laz Alonso, really liked Michael Johnston, saw some great friends. So, that's my little recap and my own personal experience of Fan Expo. And if anyone from Fan Expo sees this, I'm not trying to, be a curmudgeon or anything. I'm just giving you my honest opinion, is that there was, for things that were very high scale, there was a lack of organization that, I say this constructively, I hope really benefits you guys moving forward, and you're able to fix a lot of these issues. Again, I do sympathize that there were problems with the photo op materials, but even then, a convention this large scale, it's like, there should be more safety nets in place for stuff like that. And now that it's happened, hopefully there will be. So that's my update on my personal experience at Fan Expo Chicago 2026. Overall, I'd say a good time, but there definitely needs to be some organizational work done, especially with these larger shows, because it was just, I would not separate photo ops upstairs and downstairs like that. That was just too much. Like, don't do that again. Like, that going back and forth, it's like, ugh. So. But anyways, I hope you guys enjoyed this video. Stay tuned for more. My Carolina vacation vlog, which is a really fun video, Atlantic Antics, that should be coming very soon as these damn pictures get developed. And we will see you guys in the next video. Take care, and thanks for watching.